Hi, and welcome to Stitched from My Stash podcast, episode 10. I'm Julie, and I'm coming to you from just north of Glasgow in the UK. Today, it's been a beautiful sunny day, not as cold. I've actually got some washing out, and nice that it's not as frosty and icy on the roads. Thank you so much for watching, and particularly thank you to those people that have subscribed. That's really great. Nice to have you along for some company. And today I don't think I've only got one actual finished object and still a couple of works in progress. So first of all, what I'm wearing, it's a colourwork short sleeve top, which I made 4 years ago. It's on my Instagram, stitched from my stash, but I haven't looked it up because I just wanted to get some videoing done. It's from this book, which I bought at a motorway service station, again, perhaps 5 years ago. We were travelling up to Scotland, and I looked through it and I thought, there is quite a few things in there I would make. I bought it before I'm trying to get rid of this glare on my glasses, before I was a really, I'm not saying I'm a competent knitter, but better than I am now. And the sweaters and things are knitted in pieces and sewn up the sides, and I'd much prefer now to knit things in the round. But I did manage with this one, and looking at the colours, I think I sort of matched the colours to what's in the magazine, in the book. It's only acrylic yarn and just using up what I had, but I am pleased with it. I'm watching, I've got a cup of coffee there. I am pleased with it. It's not perfect, but it's, it suits its purpose. And I put it on this morning, and I've never worn it over a t-shirt, so I think that works. It makes it is warmer, but it still isn't like really warm. It is January, obviously, so I think that works quite well, having it under a t-shirt. This is just a Marks and Spencer's plain t-shirt, and I know I've worn this top for the few times I've had vaccinations. I don't know if it's because it happens to be in the winter, and because they say go with something where you can have your arms accessible, isn't it? So I did have, excuse me, the COVID and a flu vaccine. I think it's 2 weeks this Sunday, and I wore this. I don't like injections, who does? So the person that did the injection said, do you want it in the same arm? So I just looked away, didn't feel anything. And I think perhaps I was a little bit nauseous for the week after, but nothing too bad. So that's great. And I think what motivated me was, obviously I don't want to have flu, but the NHS waiting lists. And I thought, I don't want to contribute to going to hospital with a flu. And so that really motivated me to get the vaccine done. Anyway, I digress. From this book, Dorling Kindersley, I do like their books, particularly children's books. And I think I've done a few other things from here, some blankets. But I might delve back into this. There's lots of nice things in here. I did have a cull of my books fairly recently. Did a car boot sale, or no, it wasn't a car boot sale, it was a school fair type thing, and give some to charity, because I wasn't using all of them. But I've kept this one. It's got a bit of a stitch Bible at the back, and instructions and things. So that is quite a nice book. It's quite thick. So that's where this top has come from. And like I said, I like the idea of wearing it over a t-shirt. Right, so that's what I'm wearing. The one finished object I have is the basket that I mended the handles, and they are much more secure, and put a new lining in. I'll talk about that, but when I took the lining out, it is like a plasticky lining, but it's actually in a circle, and in order to fit the basket, there were folds in it. Well, I tried to be a bit cleverer than that, but it did take me a long time to get the inside to fit. The fabric I used, I have got a bit of it left here, was this fabric, which is really pretty. It's a nice weight cotton fabric, and it's a design called the Country Diary collection, and it says it's dormer. I think it is sort of a lightweight curtain fabric, and I think I bought this at a car boot sale when we were living in North Wales near Codwen, and it wasn't a big car boot sale, but I did a car boot sale as well. I was trying to declutter as ever, and one of the other stall holders had bundles of fabric, offcuts, and sort of, I don't know, from her stash. She's a really nice lady. This was many years ago. So this was part of one of the bundles I bought. I can't remember. I did use it for something, but I can't remember what. Anyway, I spent quite a while piecing, because they were small pieces, piecing together, and I tried to keep it on the grain. I don't know why. And I did manage then to get enough together to create the lining. It's not perfect fit, and it was a bit of a faff, so I have got a bit of a bunch in the bottom, but at least it's usable now. That one of the handles was coming right off, but now I've sewn them securely a few inches into the actual basket, and that, I think that's going to be a really nice basket to put craft, knitting, whatever, perhaps when I'm on the go and going something. I did say this was a basket that I saved from my mum's house when we were clearing her house. My mother died in 2011, and she would use this basket whenever she went on a bus trip, and she'd put her picnic lunch and her flask and things in this basket. So I really wanted to save it. I think I've done a good job. I think the handles are secure. What I used for the sewing was a needle from this set, which I can't even remember buying. I think it's like an upholstery set. It says on the back, for use on canvas, carpet, leather, sacks, sails, upholstery. Oh, so it's giving you the different needles. I don't think they're all in there, but what each needle could be used for. So this is the needle. It's I suppose, a crescent shape, and it worked really well for going into the Hessian basket, whatever it is. I think I would have struggled without that. And I remember these. I thought, I'm going to try that. I think I would have struggled to get into the basket, because obviously it is quite thick. I wouldn't say it's like a really heavy duty basket. Raffia, is it? I'm not sure. But it did help me get in and out, particularly to secure the strapping. But then when I was sewing the lining around the top, that was really effective. So, as my mother would have said, things like this, don't eat or drink. You can keep your fabric, keep your stash. It doesn't eat or drink, and things come in. And that definitely came in this morning. And I also used this leather thimble, which I had in a bundle that I requested off Free Cycle. There were a few other quilty things in there. Can't remember, perhaps a bit of yarn. I can't remember what was in there, but these really came in for pushing the needle into the Hessian fabric. It's like an elasticated. Never used those before. I do have some ordinary thimbles, but I do find thimbles quite tricky to use, perhaps because I don't use them often enough. So I used that, and I also used this thread, which I think is crochet thread. It's very fine, and again, somebody gave me this. They'd stopped knitting and crocheting because they had arthritis. Somebody I met through Instagram who lives in North Wales, and we met up for a coffee, and she gave me bags of yarn, so that was really kind, and that's come in. So that's what I did. My one and only finished object this week is this basket, which I think I'm really pleased with, and I'll definitely use. Now the handle's been secured. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a sip of coffee, and then I'll have a look at my partial finished item, which is the quilt top. My aim was to finish the quilt top, the patchwork, this week, which I've done, and I'm pleased with how it turned out, but it took ages. It took much longer than I thought, and that's with having most of the patches already cut out. I think I had to cut perhaps about 15 of the plain pink squares, but other than that, all the rest was already cut, and it took me ages to piece the top. And I did just do a measurement of the finished quilt, and I think it's about 100 wide and about 104 long. I think there's one extra row of sashing for the length, so it's going to be a good double size. And I'll move the camera back and I'll show a bit of the design. I'm not sure if they call it friendship stars, or I'm not sure of the shape. So I did want it, so in a way it is a finished object, but it's not. It's what I wanted to get to this week. So I'm just going to move the camera back and hold up the quilt to have a bit better look at the actual. So the rows are made up of one type of pink fabric. So this pink here will be a row, and there are 6 blocks in the row. You just see the sun streaming in through the window, and most of the pinks in the stars are leftovers from other projects. The sashing I specifically, well, I didn't save for this, but I don't think I'd used that in any other projects. So that's the other side. Some of the pinks are paler than others, but I am pleased with how it looks. but it did take, and it isn't perfect, some of the, particularly the pink squares in the centres don't match up, but I am pleased that that part of the process is finished. And this was cut out at least 2 years ago, I think, or 2 years. So that's a good thing done. That's been malingering in a box and now is halfway to being a quilt. In terms of the backing, I have this fabric which I bought in a charity shop, which is a quilt cover which has been taken apart. You can just see the poppers on there. So it's a good weight. It could be a poly cotton, but it's a nice weight cotton. I haven't measured how wide it is. That's the inside. I haven't measured how wide it is, whether or not it's going to be wide enough and long enough. I think it was probably a single quilt, but I'm hoping that's going to be wide enough for the backing. If not, I have a really vibrant pink flower fabric which I would use. I can always put a stripe of plain white down the side. So my job this week is to sort out the backing, decide what I'm using, measure it up, and then, excuse the rustling, to use bits of wadding that I've squirreled away and try and piece them together to make enough. I've got quite a lot of it. They may be different weights, but I'm not aiming for perfection. But I have bundles of cotton wadding, which I think there's probably enough there to make an inner for a double quilt. So that's, I did piece bits together for this one, and that worked really successfully. So my job this week is to make the batting out of the spare pieces, which does take a long time, baste, and then quilt. I have the binding already cut, again cut ages ago. So that's my job for this week, one of my jobs. We've had the builders in, so still not access to the spare room. Well, they finished. We've had a bathroom rejig, which we're really pleased with, but it does need decorating now. But they did use my granddaughter's room to store their tools, so that needs a really good clean. So when that's all done, I'll put her quilt on the bed and have a good look at it from that angle. So that's a sort of where I wanted to get to this week. I finished the basket. In terms of, I had 3 other things I was hoping to do. One was the hat for my granddaughter, never got to that. The other was socks, which aren't finished, but I finished one the week before, and I have got to the heel. I've done the heel turn, and I'm now doing the heel flap at the back. So I have made progress. I've had other things on this week, but not finished. So hopefully next week, now the builders are gone, perhaps we'll be onto the cleaning then, won't we? And the decorating. But that's the socks, and that's a vanilla pattern using this free download, which I would really recommend, off Ravelry. And the yarn is a All Stars head over heels, and it's so soft. It's really nice. It is a superwash wool, which I think means it's coated in some plasticized stuff to stop it shrinking, but it is still really nice and soft. So that was the other thing I should have been, which I did work on that, but not as much as I'd like to have. I think the quilt took so long, excuse me. And the other thing I was working on was this crochet blanket, which I haven't abandoned, but what I've done is I've started another ball in using a larger hook. This is a 5.5mm, and I think that one was a 4.5, and I thought the fabric it was making was too dense. It wasn't soft at all. So I've cast on using the 5.5, and the fabric is much softer. It's got a really better feel to it, but I think I was doing it in the car as Andrew was driving, and I couldn't be bothered to look back at the pattern online. So I think the sides are not straight. So I'll undo this and start again. I don't mind undoing things, usually. So I'll undo that. Now I know that using a larger needle does make a softer fabric. A larger hook, sorry, does make a softer fabric. I will undo that and start afresh. So that's it for today, really, I think, because, well, 3 of them are works in progress. 3. I didn't even start the hat. It was a sewn hat, but I've had other things on, as I've said, so I've not got round to that. Right, what else? So what else I want to do this week is to go back and update my craft book where I keep notes of things I've made. And I have done quite a bit of sewing, which I know I haven't recorded in my book, and it is useful for when you go back and you want to make the same item again and you want to look up any changes you made, etc. So again, I've got quite a bit on, and I think perhaps I overestimated this week what I could get done, but I underestimated how long making the top of the quilt would take. Anyway, it's all good fun, and I've really enjoyed what I've made. And just remember I really like this fabric, and I have loads of plans in my head of things I'd like to make. What I'm going to try and use this for, and I'm not saying I'm doing it this week, but is to make some of those little project bags, particularly for socks, because there's not a lot of fabric here. I may just make zip pouches like these. You know, I've made quite a few of these in the past, which that might have been a pencil case when I was working, not sure. But managed to fit a pair of socks in there. And this one, which I think might have started off as a makeup bag, not sure. And I've got lots of zips. This was quite a funky one. I don't think I've got many chunky ones like that left. But I think that's what I would make. Just some small little pouches that are, you know, I keep notions in here. Scissors and threads and whatever. Tape measures. But I could do with a few more of these. And I think this fabric, not sure if it's like stiff enough, not sure if it's thick enough. This is a padded fabric with a lining in it. Anyway, I would like to do some knitting project bags at some point. Right, so that's it for today. If you've got this far, thank you very much. Good to have your company, and as ever, look after yourselves and hope to see you again soon. Bye.